All right, we are live. Welcome back to another edition of Elevate Your Grind, brought to you by the Cannabis Lab. I am your host, Todd Rosales, and welcome to another full week of episodes of Elevate Your Grind. We have another great week of content for you here this week. If you missed any of our episodes last week, we had some great conversations. Again, we had Rosie Matteo on the show. We had Andreas Newman on the show. We had Jen and Mike from AYR on the show. It was a great week of episodes. Of course, if you missed any of those episodes, they'll be live across our YouTube page this week at youtube.com/elevate your grind. We have a great seminar coming up tomorrow night at it's either 4:20 or 7 p.m. You know what? Go to joinclab.com or find us on Eventbrite, and you'll be able to find out exactly when that panel is. But it is a panel on employment. So if you're looking to get a job in the cannabis space, this is definitely the panel that you want to attend. So check that out at either Eventbrite and look for Cannabis Lab, or go to joinclab.com. This week, we've got another great week of episodes. Today's guest has an incredible story, and I'm very excited to share that with you. And then tomorrow's guest is one that I seeked out because he wrote this beautiful book. So we are going to have Brian Secondi on the show. He wrote The Kids of Cannabis. I'm really excited to talk to him about this book. You guys know that I had Kendra Stocking on the show, and the main topic we talked about was talking to your kids about cannabis in the new world, especially with a lot of us that work in this industry. We live this, we're advocates. And I am 3 weeks away from having baby number 2. So this is a topic I am actively seeking advice for, because this is a real world application for me, and I imagine a lot of other people too. So we're going to have Brian on tomorrow. So check that out tomorrow, 7:00 here on both LinkedIn and Facebook Live. As always, your favorite cannabis podcast. Okay, folks, my guest today is an 18-year veteran of the cannabis industry. He started cultivating when he was 12 years old. He built a cannabis empire. He went to the other side of cannabis, and now he's heading on his way back to the full side of cannabis. I'm very excited to hear his story, because at the end of the day, this podcast is about the entrepreneurs in this space and all the hurdles they've overcome, right? So please welcome my guest today, the founder and CEO of Pure Craft CBD, Jason Navarrete. Jason, thanks for joining me, man.
Yeah, thank you, man. Appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. I mean, 18 years in the cannabis industry, that is a very, very long time. So, man, I go through your story, and I'm excited, right? There are a lot of times when we have guests on this show and they're entrepreneurs and everything else, but I don't know. It's just the story isn't exciting. But when I look at your story, just the things that you've overcome, your background, and then how you're also contributing back to the community, I like it. And I'm really excited to dig in. So let's kind of start at the end here. There's no rhyme or reason to the way I ask questions, but because of your upbringing, because of your journey, is that why it's so important for you to start giving back to the community? Because I've noticed that you're also an adjunct professor at Cal State as well, too. So we'll get into all the cannabis stuff, but let's focus on you as the entrepreneur. Now that you've kind of found this model for success a little bit, and I know that you still have a hell of a journey left to go as well. The journey's never complete. How important is it for you to take that mentor role and give back?
I think it's really important. I think a lot of kids now, they see, entrepreneurship as something that's fun. They see the Lambos, they see, all the things that can come from it, which sure, that can come with tons of hard work. But I think before they get into it, they're looking at those things and looking at the great life they could possibly live, but they don't understand that this doesn't cut off at 5 p.m. You don't have your weekends, the sacrifices you're going to make to build something extraordinary, is going to be a ton of hard work, So I like to really embrace that and show firsthand, that you can come from anywhere and it could be possible, but just know that it's going to be a ton of hard work.
Yeah, man. I that's something I like to talk about on the show a lot, because to me, the Lambos and the money and the private, that's all really cool. Don't get me wrong. It's all really cool, but you can go be an entertainer and get that too. I mean, there's other paths to being rich. But when it comes to entrepreneurship, I follow Cody Sanchez a lot. She's a friend. And one of the things she recently wrote is there's a big difference between doing what you love and doing whatever the fuck you want. Right. And entrepreneurship is really, I used to think it was doing what you love, but at the end of the day, it really is doing whatever the fuck you want and having the freedom to do that. So this is the best path. Circling back to the genesis of your entrepreneurship. So you didn't come from a wealthy background by any stretch of the imagination, and quite the opposite. As a kid, you had a rough go of it. I read that you started having to cultivate fruits and vegetables and stuff at the age of 8. What was that life back then? You know, whatever you're willing to share, man. Just I can't imagine being in that situation where at the end of the day, in the long run, maybe it was great that you went through that because we get to see what we see today. But I'm sure, like every other great person, certainly didn't feel that way at the time.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, being in that type of situation, it wasn't, I was literally, my parents, my father was extremely smart. Um, I mean, very, very smart, 7 languages, spoke fluently, served in the Marines, was electrical engineer. Before I was born, he moved down to Florida because he had a job opportunity there. My parents were doing very well. I was the last sibling, to be born. And, at that point, things didn't go well and, ended up losing the house and everything else. And, that was the treacherous, path after that. But I didn't experience anything good before that. So I kind of was raised in that. So I didn't know any better, so I didn't know what this was. But as I continued to grow older, I saw that, friends would have this or they would have that. And, at a very young age, I wanted to change that, so I started reading. I read a lot. I mean, I used to max out my library card at the library and I'd get as many books as my library card would allow me to have. And that's all I did was read and read and read and read. And then I started studying, successful people, and then that's how the business journey began. But the fruits and vegetables was something that my mom always had as like a pretty large hobby. She always had plants all around the house and fruit trees outside and everything. And, they were always okay, but they were never the best. And,
Mm-hmm.
I started, following her around and watching her do things. And then I started, reading books and seeing how I can do it even better, what these plants needed. And, plants are going to tell you through their leaves, they're going to tell you everything that's possibly wrong by just the way they look. And each thing has a different, solution. So I got better and better, and it's a slow learning process. It teaches you a lot of patience. But at the same time, it was kind of like a kind of like a solitude for me. I would kind of get lost in growing the plants, or I wasn't focused around everything else around me. And then, I just became really, really good at it because I was always working at it, and I ended up growing this ridiculous garden on the side of the house that was just banana trees and fruit trees and any plant possible, like I was doing tissue culture at 13 years old,
Wow.
and it was like, I was just really, really good at it. And, I used to have people stop by the house and they'd ring the doorbell and ask to take pictures, because they'd never seen anything like it. You can
That's
imagine like a
great.
tropical like style, like huge banana plants and, full of bananas and everything else, just luscious green and beautiful, and that was the beginning journey, that started it all.
I mean, that's so cool for you to figure this all out at a young age. I've got 2 questions here to kind of ask, right? One, was it your parents that drove you to kind of self-teach yourself and go and seek that education yourself? Because it's not easy for an 8-year-old, especially when you're in school and everything else, and you kind of have knowledge being thrown at you and everything else, to go say, oh no, I want to learn this. I want to figure this out. Obviously, you got joy from doing the activity. So I'm sure that was an incentive. But I'm curious to know, like, did they push you for this, even though they may not have had the means to really give you formal entrepreneur training, but just giving those tips and tricks and letting you figure it out yourself, I see are beneficial in the long run. And then the second one would be doing things like tissue culture at 13. Like, don't take this the wrong way. Do you think that you were bold enough to try these things because you were too young and naive to realize how hard they might actually be? Where you're just young, you're like, that doesn't seem that hard. I'll give it a try, right? Like, where if you would
That's
have figured it out at 30, you would have been like, damn, this seems a little complicated. Like, I don't know if I can do that.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, they never pushed any of that on me. My dad was always about knowledge. Like my dad read, close to 2,000 books a year. I mean, he
Wow.
read a ton of books. He would read A to Z on encyclopedias. I mean, maybe some of our listeners don't even know what encyclopedias are anymore, but he would read A to
I
Z on
think we lost them
encyclopedias.
at library cards, by the way. I definitely think we lost them at library cards.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, he read a ton, so he always kind of pushed that onto us to read. And I always said, knowledge, is power. So if there's anything you need to know, just pick up a book and read, and figure it out. So that's
Yeah.
kind of, what I always did. I would always go to the library and pick up all these topics that I was interested in, and I would just sit in the corner and read. But I mean, they never really pushed that on me at all. It was just kind of, it was like that was like another part of my solitude. Like
Yeah.
I would just dive into books, just to it would block out the reality of what was actually going on.
Very cool, man. I mean, obviously not cool at the time, but it's always fun to see the genesis of successful people where, this is your escape, and your escape was a life skill that has paid off tenfold for you in the long run, which ends up working out. And then around, I was at age 12 or 13, your brother hands you some cannabis seeds and is like, hey man, you grow some world-class fruits and vegetables. Why don't you try this? And in the reality of it, folks, we understand it's like black or gray market, everything else back then, but that's what the world of farming is starting to see today, where they're growing and they're spending all this time and effort and energy growing these fruits and vegetables and grain crops and everything else. And it's not as profitable and as easy to make money as a crop like cannabis, whether it's on the hemp side or the THC side. So your brother hands you these seeds. And what was that experience like? Were you from, I know you're very young at this time. Obviously, I don't know if you were in South Florida, but it's the scene back then. We've interviewed Brady Cobb. His dad was running it through the
Yep.
state. What was that experience like? Were you scared a little bit? Did you not know what it was? I'm just curious, like at a young age, him saying, hey, you're great, try this.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see it as a problem, kind of until a little bit later on when, I did realize that, what I am doing is a crime. Um, but it also my brothers are older than me, we weren't raised in the best neighborhood, so I mean, everybody in the neighborhood, or all the friends or anybody in that area, was into some type of, selling of drugs of some sort.
Yeah.
So my brother started smoking cannabis at a very young age, and hanging out with friends, getting into trouble, all that stuff. So, I mean, that's really what sparked it. And then, my brother just came up to me one day and handed me some seeds and said, you're so good at growing all this other stuff. Why don't you try growing these? And it was a challenge that I accepted. So I started growing them, and I grew a few of them. I grew, I think it was 4 or 5, and then they came out, exceptional. I ended up getting one female out of the couple that I had, and I got rid of the males. And like I said, books and everything taught me this. So it was kind of learning path and experience as I went, but it ended up coming out absolutely incredible. And
Yeah.
um, my brother and his friends, of course they took it all, and they smoked it and everything else, and they were like, man, this is like you're like really really good at this. And so it was the challenge of the plant though that kept attracting me, because I was so focused on perfection. So I wanted to grow better and better. There's so many variables with the cannabis plant that you have to nail. And it's the quality, that's the smell, that's the taste, that's the yield, the consistency, and then with all new genetics, you're constantly getting new things. It's always
Yeah.
a mystery. It's kind of like a cereal box and seeing what prize you get. So it just always attracted me to keep going and going and going. And I ended up growing into something massive as the years turned on.
I mean, like I said, I think it's a great story. It's really one of progression and one that we're going to hear more and more in the future now because it is legal at different ages and everything else. And, you know, people can grow and cultivate, and we're going to have masters and apprentices. And it's cool. We're going back to a very old way of building skill and building trade, right? And I think our country is missing a lot of that. We glorify this entrepreneur lifestyle that we all live, but at the end of the day, I look at you, and as much of an entrepreneur you are, I imagine you're very happy with a pair of headphones and gloves and trimming in the garden versus being in your suit in the boardroom.
Yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely.
It, Exactly. So trade skills are very important. And then all of a sudden we fast forward 2016 and you get the ability to do this the right way. You get a license, you set up shop in California, and off you go to build an empire. Now, I know with your CBD business that there is a very scientific approach that you take to CBD and how it's delivered and everything else. You know, having not been classically trained, having been self-educated and learning by experience, by the time you get to open up your doors in 2016, I imagine your growing techniques and the technology that you're putting into this is exponentially different than the old days.
Oh yes. Oh yeah. Like I grew in, I've grown in every single media, every single variation, every single nutrient. I mean, everything. I literally have notebooks and notebooks, over the years of taking notes and dialing things in and just really mastering. Well, I hate the word mastering, the whole master grower thing, because you'll never really master this plant, but just gaining tons of experience and trying to perfect the craft of growing the best cannabis in the world, and that's what really it was all about. It was all about the end consumer. And, it was the smiles on their faces and not knowing that you cultivated the cannabis and them indulging in it and then going, oh my God, this tastes amazing. This is amazing. Wow. What, you grew this? Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. And they'd shake your hand. That's what it was about. It was about that end smile, and it's at the end of the day, it's like, I did that,
Yeah.
I created that.
No, passion is what drives this industry forward, and folks like you are definitely the backbone of it. I mean, so all of a sudden 2016, you've got the cultivation down, you've got product, you know what you're doing, but in the cannabis business we've got to do much more than just cultivating. So was it a challenge for you at that point? I'm sure you had other business experience, kind of figuring out the rest of it, the business side of it, stupid things like payroll, insurance, tax and regulation, you know, delivery and
Yeah.
logistics, that kind of stuff, you know. So when you open your doors, did you have that kind of formal training, or was that all stuff like, shit, we got to figure this out now?
Yeah, that was the whole thing. You got to figure this out now. Like, um, I owe how much money to the IRS? Like, what the, like, are you kidding me? And it was nope, nope, I'm not kidding you. You owe a ton of money to the IRS,
Yeah.
and it was all those things, especially here in California, the franchise tax board, and then it just everything in general. I mean, luckily with this type of side, you can hire professionals, like in the day of growing cannabis, it's like you couldn't hire somebody and say, hey, can you teach me how to grow cannabis, because it was illegal, so you
Mhm.
had to figure those things out yourself. You had to go through that trial and error. You had to read and gain all that knowledge, but the whole business side was definitely also a big learning, and it still is
Yeah.
because the larger you grow, the more complicated things become and the more expensive things become and the more staff you need and everything else, the attorneys, everything, it just becomes huge.
Dude, I agree. I mean, like I said, even the fact that coming into this situation, having some of the top knowledge on cultivation and being able to put out product is really only a part of the equation. But it takes someone like you, and giving me your background and how you figured out the cultivation side of it. There's no doubt in my mind that you would put your head back into the books and figure out the rest of it, or at the very least, at this point in your life, go to the experts and find out. So you've built a hell of a cannabis business, and then the opportunity comes to exit, right? And, you know, I would think a lot of entrepreneurs in this space, or a lot of people might have looked at you and been like, wait, why are you doing that? Like you were one of the first, you built it. And, you know, I look at what you did from a business standpoint and I see a wealth of opportunity, right? You can tell me how close I am to your thought process here, but you're able to exit a company that you built, take probably a good amount of money, and then be able to, in my opinion, become a first impression of cannabis to a lot of people because you started a CBD business. Now, I'd argue that a lot of entrepreneurs want to go the other way. But in the time that you were working with THC, California is kind of a shit show. It's not easy. You can't easily grow and scale across state lines. If you want to do it the way that you've been doing it, especially as a cultivator, you've got to get a cultivation license wherever you go. Those are extremely pricey. So here you start Pure Craft. You go, hey, we're going to be everybody's kind of first toe in the water for these kind of curious people in with CBD, put out a quality product that works. And now, and I hope I can share this, you're going to go and head back into THC. So now that you have this trusted name in CBD, those folks who you've earned their trust will try your THC products. And to me, I'm all about the ease into the industry. I love that approach. So tell me, how off am I on this? And really, was that were you thinking about that at the time, or was it just like, hey, we worked our ass off, let's get our reward, and then it came later? I'm really interested to see how an entrepreneur decides to go from one business and do it again.
Yeah, I mean, it was never an exit because, you know, it was a failing venture, or, you know, it needed to be done. It was just, you know, here's an opportunity that didn't exist. We didn't even know it even existed. And, you know, why not? Exactly like you said, it was, why not? Like, we built this from the ground up. So, you know, we can easily do this again, you know, except this time we'll have way more money, you know, to do it, you know, and to do it in the location and everything, you know, that we really want and really expand. And, you know, because the whole time it's like I've been living in the shadows, you know. So here I am, this, you know, people would say, you know, this glowing cultivator sitting over there in the shadows, because my whole life I've been, you know, trained not to say that I grow cannabis, you know.
Yeah.
So nobody really knew who I was or what I did, you know. So I was always in the cultivation side of it, you know. I mean, yeah, I would see the customers on the other end and all that stuff, and you know, they would always acknowledge me. But as far as that goes, I was never, you know, crazy on social media or anything like that, you know. So it's always been the love of the plant, you know. It's never really been about the money, you know. It was, yeah, you can make a substantial amount of money if you're great at this, you sure can. But, you know, that was never the main focus, and the main goal was never the bottom line. You know, it was all about producing the best cannabis, growing the best plants from start to finish, and really getting that end consumer smile. And that's what it was about, you know. And then to want to go ahead and do it again, people say, you know, you're crazy, man. What are you doing? You know, and it's like, I love this plant. You know, I love cultivating this plant. It is such a challenge all the time. It never gets boring. It's like it's like a it's like a wife or a girlfriend, you know, that just continues to lure you back for those apparent reasons, and you just keep going back for the suffer and the beating, and it just, you know, hopefully, you know, it'll get better. But especially with the California market, I mean, the this state is just upside down with getting licenses approved and everything else. It's so expensive to get licensing here. It's unbelievably
Yeah.
expensive, you know.
Try coming back to your home state of Florida, man. It's a
Yeah,
little bit more
yeah,
expensive down here. You know, it's funny that you say that way about cannabis almost being like a wife or a girlfriend that keeps luring you back in. Because when I got into this space, I worked for a VC company, and the founder and I had a very nasty split, and he actually tried to leverage a bullshit non-compete to keep me from going to another VC. And they wanted to hire me, and they're like, listen, we love you, but not enough to take on a lawsuit to hire you. So a lot of people are like, why do you want to continue to be in this industry? Like, hey, this guy is going to come after you. I'm like, fuck it, I need to stay in here. Like, there's something about this space. And that's what led me to start this show. I'm like, all right, well, if I can't be on the investing side, let me just get all the friends and people that I've met and all these founders and everybody else, and I'll just bullshit with them on the air and see where that goes. And this turned into 150 episodes. So, this industry draws you in, and you're so much deeper in it than I am. So I can only imagine that after you've tasted it once, like, I can't be out. We've got to take another shot at this. And like you said, coming out of the shadows and into the mainstream, you're very transparent, not transparent, but you are transparent, but you took a very scientific approach to this about new delivery mechanisms. You took a lot of R&D, and not only are you able to do it that way, but now you're able to go and talk about it and talk about it proudly and teach others. So, not to kind of ask you how you decided to differentiate. I mean, I'll throw this out there, but I imagine that when you decided that you were going to go into the CBD realm, you're like, we've got to be different. There's a lot of companies out there, and the only differentiating between them, in my opinion, is great marketing, right? It's a lot of people can put out a pure product. It's not hard. It just maybe costs more. You have to do more work to find it, right? You can put out a high quality product, but if you're not a good marketer, you're not going to be successful. You figured out a way to make the CBD 90% bioavailable, whereas most other companies only have it as 18. That is absolutely incredible. So were you doing stuff like this before Pure Craft, or was this like, hey, we're going to start this and this is how we're going to do it because this is what needs to happen?
Yeah, this was something that was still when we had the cannabis company, and used to have people come in all the time, and they would say, hey, you know, you guys have CBD, and it was, yeah, we had it, but it was never really anything to write home to mom about. It was always the same old thing, and it was very overpriced, and it always get the same result. People were just never pleased. So I started looking into this, and then as I looked into it more, and then more people had asked, eventually I was reached out by MIT scientists that loved what I did with cannabis already, and they said, hey, we want to really make this really bioavailable. Can you help us
That
out?
had
Can
to
you
be
help
an
us?
incredible phone call, given all the
Yeah.
time that you spent in the cannabis industry, when all of a sudden MIT calls you and they're like, hey, we want to pick your brain about cannabis. It's like, oh shit, like, we're here. I've made it.
Yeah. And I didn't really know I didn't know how big MIT was. I was just it was like, oh, okay, and it was kind of left at that. And then it went, further and further, and started becoming a real thing. So but yeah, we just combined our brains together. I mean, these guys are exceptionally smart. I mean, like, you're in a room with them, and it's like you're lost with the things they even talk about, for fun. It's just like you don't even understand
Mhm.
half the stuff they've been saying. Everything is science based, and everything's down to science. Everything is science, science, science. But yeah, we were able to use a form of nano optimizing the cannabinoids through sonar mechanics. It's through air and pressure. So we're able to break down the cannabinoids, the molecules, very, very small. We do with air and pressure, and make them way more bioavailable. Like, most companies are taking it to 100 nanometers. We've taken it all the way down to 5 nanometers, while still preserving the cannabinoids intact, so they're active within the human body. So usually when you take them down too far, they ended up becoming inactive because you're disturbing them too much, and they become inactive to where they don't do anything. So we're able to still keep them active and make them way more bioavailable. So less is more, and just looking at the end consumer, and then trying to deliver everything from brand to customer service to just exceptional product, and then some, and just continue to innovate, and continue to make product. We have so many products that we're working on, and it's overwhelming, to be honest, because the CBD market shifts such a crazy pace, you know, and there's so many people
Yeah.
getting into this industry. And I think a lot of people don't know how hard this is either. I mean, even though it's federally legal, you know, you're not the traditional forms of advertising, you know, are not there. I mean, Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff. I can't just throw up an ad, you
Yeah.
know, and gain tons of people and make myself aware. It just doesn't work that way. You know, it's a very slow burning game, and it takes a ton of money to really, you know, be known, you know?
I agree, man. I don't think people realize how hard CBD is, especially now that there are established players in this space too that have earned trust. And it's very hard to be a new brand if you're not innovating, especially doing something like you. I had a friend when I was in the VC space, he came to me. He wanted to start a CBD company. He went down the process and he asked me if I had any advice. I said, yeah, stop and get out. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, you got to learn digital marketing, man. You've got to learn digital marketing. You got to figure out how to market your products. You've got a lot of things that you have to figure out on your own to compete with the people that are out there already. And if you're not willing to do those things, like he was doing it as a side hustle, and I'm like, this is a very hard business at this point in time to do as a side hustle because it's going to take your full time and attention. And you
Yeah.
know, the unfortunate part is he didn't get that business off the ground. He's an entrepreneur in other businesses now. He comes from a cleaning background for a massive national cleaner, and he does like sanitizing shit now. So he's a great entrepreneur. But you know, I wish he took my advice on the CBD business before he went too far on it. I had a reason for bringing up that analogy, and sometimes they just escape me.
Oh,
Oh, so with the being more bioavailable, I mean, candidly, what does that mean to the consumer? Is it that they get more for less, a lower amount gives them more of an effect, they get a better effect, it's a better entourage effect? I'm just curious because with your product, there is a lot of science behind it that is extremely beneficial to the consumer. But I'm curious to know, is that hard to market to get people to understand what it actually means to them?
yes. I mean, this whole industry as a whole is education. You know, it's education, you know, education. And it's just so many people don't understand it. They hear stuff, they read stuff, they don't know what they're doing, what they're purchasing, what to even look for. You know, I mean, this is brand new to a massive amount of society, you know, so you have people that'll try, you know, not very reputable companies, and you know they get burned, you know. And it's
Yeah.
people need to understand that CBD is not like actual, you know, THC. You're not going to get an effect, you know, that's instant. And same thing with alcohol, you know, it's not the same. And people want, you know, immediate gratification. You know, they want to feel something immediately. And CBD, you know, and other cannabinoids are just it's a long-term consistency game. It's kind of like your health. It's like everything else, you know, working out. You're not going to go to the gym once and get huge, you know, the next day. You know, it just doesn't work that way. You have to be consistent. Same thing with business. It's all about consistency. You know, you're not going to get rich overnight. You know, I don't care what course you buy, what you do, you're not going to get rich overnight, you know? So it's all about consistency. And that's the thing you have to educate people with, because they'll take, you know, a couple CBD gummies and like, oh, well, I didn't feel anything, you know, or they'll do, you know, a couple droppers full of CBD and say, oh, it didn't do anything for me, you know? And it's about consistency, you know? So I always tell people, you know, use it for 2 weeks, you know, use it for 2 weeks, 21 days, consistently on a regimen, use it, and then stop. And then tell me if you don't feel anything, if you don't feel that your sleep is now off, you know, and your mood is now off, you're going to snap at people more, you know, you're just going to be completely off, because that's what CBD does, right? It brings balance, it balances out the body. And,
Yeah.
you know, it's a process that takes time, you know, but with what I've created with these scientists is, you know, you're getting the standard 18% from everything we've done in the lab. That's what we've seen, a standard 18%, right? Some are way lower, but we've seen a standard 18%. So that means if you're getting 1,000 milligrams in a tincture bottle, you're only getting 18% of that is absorbable into the body. So really you're thinking you're getting 1,000 milligrams, or say 33 milligrams per full dropper worth, and you're really not. You know, your body can only absorb 18% of that 33 milligrams. So we wanted to change that and make sure you get the full amount of milligrams that's actually inside the bottle, or inside the edible.
Yeah,
So
man.
that's the difference, and we wanted to give it to where it was affordable. I mean, I think we have even the bigger companies now beat even in gummies and stuff like that. I mean, we've really taken our prices down as low as we possibly can to really get the product out there and get people to try it, and get people to trust us, and continue to gain their trust.
Yeah. I'm glad that you had mentioned the 2 week trial period for people, because when I look at CBD and people ask me about it, I look at it like a supplement or a vitamin, if you will. Like this is what you, from a cannabis standpoint, this is the version that you take daily that's not going to really give you a psychoactive effect where you're, like you said, you're not going to notice the incremental effects until you get off of it, right? It's just going to make your life better over time, and then you'll notice what it did for you when you're not on it anymore. So it's interesting because, like I said, when I talk about CBD, I said that's your vitamin, that's your supplements that you're taking,
Mhm.
that's just like anything else that you would do. When it comes to the THC, that's your immediate fast
Yeah.
acting relief. That's more like your pharmaceutical grade thing where it's like, I need this help now. um, and that's how I would compare the two. And I think that's how a lot of the country should look at this, right? So I'm very happy to hear you say that, because I'm in that same boat. And I know, you have an interest in the supplement world beyond the CBD world. And we're starting to see some of the cool things you're doing in the form of products, like, going on the website and you have something specifically focused for sleep that is a very highly bioavailable CBD mixed with melatonin, right? And that's where I see CBD really being a benefactor in the supplement world going forward. I'm sure that you fully agree, and I'm sure you have a bunch more products that support that thesis.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Our melatonin product is absolutely exceptional. It's there. I mean, we haven't had not one person that's gotten that product and did not love it. So it's well, I mean, what we did with that is we not only nano optimized the CBD and the other cannabinoids inside, but we also nano optimized the melatonin as well. And the big thing with melatonin
Wow.
is, yeah, the big thing with melatonin is that if anybody's taken melatonin, I've had this experience. I know plenty of other people have as well. But when you take melatonin in a standard form, it takes a couple hours to set in, right? So you end up having to really plan around your time of getting it to set in. And then when it does, set in, it's already too late. And then it doesn't have enough time to wear off because the body's processing it because the molecule is still too large for the body. And then you wake up groggy, or it's hard for you to wake up, or you hit snooze in your alarm. So, what we did is by nano optimizing it, we're taking that taxation off the liver and off the bloodstream, and we're able to get it into the body, get it to do its thing, get you to sleep, and then get it out of the body as quickly as possible with avoiding that heavy taxation on the liver. So you're able to get what it needs to be done, and it's out. You're up. You feel great. The CBD is there as well, and you have a great restful night's sleep.
Dude, that's a perfect product right there. I think that's a part of why the cannabis industry needs to exist and what's important here. To me, it's crazy because you're going off in both directions here, which is perfect. You're taking the technology that you have done specifically for PureCraft, and you're bringing that back into the THC side of the cannabis space, but you're also doing it for the supplement space in general, and all these supplements that we take in our body that are important, that I think that you can probably reduce the amount that people take, or honestly make it more affordable because they don't have to buy as much because it's more effective. So, I mean, is that the plan, is really to bring these technologies and processes to both supplements and the THC cannabis space?
Oh, yes. Yes, definitely. I mean, being able to mix certain cannabinoids, even the future, not just, like most of everything we do, or everything we do actually at this point in time, is all broad spectrum, right? It's all nanotized broad spectrum. So we want the array of cannabinoids, but we are working on a full spectrum. At the time when I did start all the research and doing it and putting everything into play, It was on that gray area line of, full spectrum. Kind of nobody was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to fail
Yeah.
drug tests, I'm going to have all that stuff. And the broad spectrum was really something that was hot. But I mean, if you've been in cannabis and you know cannabis, you know that you need that THC molecule. If you
Mhm.
really, really want to get some serious, serious effects. So being able to nanotize that in a full spectrum form and keep the THC molecule in there, you know, we're really going to see some some really nice results coming from that. But being also able to take other vitamins as well, that are geared towards different aspects of health, and then nano
Yeah.
optimizing those as well. We're able to really pinpoint using all different um, cannabinoids and other supplements, and really combining them together for certain areas of people's lives, to focus things that have already been proven, vitamins that have already been proven, to do certain things through science. We're going to combine those with cannabinoids at certain levels, and really give people a desired effect.
Very cool, man. That's awesome. I mean, candidly, I think you're gonna make a killing when you get to vitamin D. And everybody's
Oh yeah.
deficient in vitamin D
Yes,
these
that's
days.
we're already working on it. I'm an avid. I've been taking vitamin D3 and zinc. That's part of my daily regimen. I've been taking it for years now. For years, I was on that train very long ago. Very long ago. And I haven't been sick in years. And I've been around
Yeah.
some nasty sick people. I mean, even before the whole COVID thing. I was constantly working 24/7. I was running a massive empire. So I had tons of employees, and, everybody was coming in always sick and everything else. And I never, ever got sick, and I started even getting everybody else on it. And I'm like, hey, this is what I do. And you have to just look at the science of it. I mean, it does what I mean, it's proven to
Yeah.
do what it's supposed to do. You just have to stay consistent with it. I mean, you see a lot of people do that with, they started getting sick, and what do? They start chugging down emergency, or
Mhm.
they start taking every vitamin in the house. And it's like, it's too late. It's too
Yeah.
late. You're going to wake up and you're going to feel like crap. And you're going to wonder why, oh, I took all this stuff, but I'm still sick, and it's like, you didn't do the preventative measures. It's almost like pests in a garden too, or mold in a garden, or anything like that. You have to do the preventative maintenance to avoid, the huge pitfalls and downfalls that it's going to cause, on a massive, cultivation operation.
we, we do that on we do that in so many aspects of our lives, the preventative maintenance, whether it's our car, whether it's the things we own, our houses, and all that. But people don't want to do it with their bodies. And it's funny, getting into the cannabis space really opened my eyes to the preventative side of things. I credit him all the time, but Ricky Williams, with his education in herbalism, talking to him and just figuring out the things that I should do for preventative measures, and not be one of those people who's chugging emergency when their nose starts running, because like you said, it's too late at that point. it's not
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
not a
yeah,
miracle drug. It should be in your system. So
yeah.
I think what you guys are doing is great. I was very excited when I got into your backstory to talk to you about everything else. I know we talked, a good amount about where you came from, and we even a little generalization about where you're going. But I always end the podcast with this question. Oh, looking at the rest of the year, beginning of 2022, what are you excited about for Purecraft from a more specific standpoint? Is there a special project, a product, an initiative you guys coming up? What can you share with us that you're excited about this year?
I mean, just a brand new facility, is going to be the next big excitement. Pure Craft Cannabis will be coming online soon, and I'll be the complete face of this company this time. I'll be fully the one that runs, the whole segment, but also branching out into supplements as well. So doing all kinds of supplements, making them more absorbable for the body as well. So there's going to be that. There's going to be apparel. We have apparel coming. We're going to change the way we do apparel as far as fitness, because I'm very heavy into fitness, and I go to the gym every single day. So I'm very heavy into wearing comfortable clothing that's functional,
Yeah.
but also, you know, you don't have to go and change. You can go to the gym, but you're not going to be covered in sweat. You know, you're not going to be stinky or anything like that. All the different material blends. So Pure Craft apparel, then supplements, and then Pure Craft cannabis, which is going to be absolutely humongous. It's going to be ridiculous.
Dude,
And that's going
Jason,
to be
I am
full
so
retail. That's going to be full retail, distribution, manufacturing, cultivation. You know, you name it.
back
It's going to
and
be
back in
huge.
California again.
Yes. Yep.
Very cool, man. That's
It's
so
going to
cool
be
that you get
huge.
to come full circle.
It's a it's one big giant building, but you know, everything's in the works right now. It's a slow, painful process here with the city.
Always.
What the city says and then what the state says is completely different. So it's just a ton of waiting, and the California marijuana market is it's a mess. It's a mess.
For,
You know.
for all of you guys thinking that we're just printing money in this industry, go wait for your license and your permitting and all that stuff. You tell us how it goes. But it's
Years.
all it is awesome that you get to come full circle and you get to be the face of this company. You get to talk about your techniques and everything else. And I can't imagine how happy you are. And, you know, it makes me really happy to see when CBD became mainstream, there were so many supplement companies that added CBD to products or came out with CBD. And it's so much cooler to see someone who started on the CBD side of things and taking the processes and procedures and science behind how you did CBD the other direction into the supplement company, like saying, hey, you guys tried to play in our world and you use marketing, but we're about to play in your world and we're using science and we're going to win. So I'm
Yeah.
cheering for you, man. I'm very excited. And before we let you go, let's get all the promotions and you know, anything else that you want to throw out there.
Yeah. I mean, purecraftcbd.com. I mean, that's where you can find it at. You know, we offer an array of products. We have more products constantly coming out. And then Purecraft CBD on Instagram. You can see a lot of stuff there. We post daily on there. And yeah, sign up for the newsletter. You know, you get tons of, I mean, we give out killer deals and all that stuff to people that actually sign up and become part of, you know, Team Purecraft. You know, and then me, it's at J underscore Navarrete on Instagram. I mean, I really don't post there a lot. It's not my main, not my main concern is to be up on social, which I need to be more. But yeah, I mean, that's it.
I have a feeling when Pure Craft Cannabis is up and running, that's going to change a lot for you. I think you're just going to be so giddy inside that grow room. You're going to be posting left and right, man.
Yeah, and that was the thing before. It's like I never really
You got to
posted.
get used to being able to tell people you do it
Yeah,
now.
yeah, and it's like I've taught a ton of people. I mean, there's if people could see and the people that I've taught and leveled up their game. I mean, I've taught people that have come from very small 8 light, beginner grows all the way to, I mean, they have massive facilities now, and they still thank me to this day, and they still come to me with concerns and questions, and and I answer all that for them, and I never charge anybody a dime. It's like it's all about for the love of the plant and really spreading, the power of this plant, throughout this whole country you know
Very cool, man. Well, we will definitely have you back when you open the doors for Pure Craft Cannabis. I'm excited
yeah,
to
I'm gonna
talk
have you
about
come
that.
and pay a visit.
100%.
Yeah,
I
to
will be there.
show you how it's really 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 done.
I will be there gladly, man.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. So thank you very much to Jason, and thank you to everybody at home for watching the show. I hope you learned something today. Like I said, Jason has an incredible story, and I'm very excited to see what he does in the future, folks. Again, we'll be live tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern. Brian Sakandi wrote the Kids of Cannabis book. Tune into that. Of course, if you missed any part of this episode with Jason, it'll be live on our YouTube page on Monday and across all the podcast platforms: Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio. Does anybody really listen to anything besides Apple and Spotify? I don't think you do, but I'm going to mention all of them for you. So check that out at youtube.com/elevate your grind. Search for it on your favorite podcast platform, folks. We'll be here again tomorrow. It's been another episode of Elevate Your Grind. Have a good night.